we're very much in sort of design phase, but we have, and I think this is probably speaks to where I imagine a lot of organisations are, is that they're using their law firms in order to help them understand and use and dip that toe in the water with the legal tech world. So when we look back to how we dealt with our GDPR exercise, which was, as I'm sure many of you experienced, quite painful, we had a huge number of contracts that we needed to review and amend in order to bring them up to standard that would be required by GDPR. So we used one of our law firms and quite frankly, their proposal and their use of technology in that project was what won them the bid, to use Kira, which has been mentioned previously before, I think in one of Rick's slides, to essentially review all of the contracts, the sort of thousands of pieces of paper that we had lying around, in order to highlight where we needed to make changes to those contracts. And the way we described it at the time, it was like the other lawyers that pitched for it were trying to get from A to B, and they had the A to Z. And the firm that we chose had Google Maps. The others are trying to work out how to get there, whilst the other law firm is already heading off, pacing towards the destination. And that cut a huge amount of cost down. It put us in a really good position in our GDPR project and won us a lot of friends within the organisation.
So I'll give a couple of examples, both of which actually are in the same value chain. So we talk about a concept of our Digital Baton. So in order to get my board excited about data within our organisation, Digital Baton was nice and manifest. They could think about how that worked. But also you could describe the Digital Baton as being a little bit like a virtual blockchain. And the moment you'd mentioned blockchain, they were all really interested because none of them know what it is, but they all know it's a desperately good idea. But what we were talking to them about was, the Crown Estate, our ownership is basically a data cascade. At the top of that data cascade, you've got some polygons, and those polygons set what we own. Underneath that, you've got a series of layers in the cascade that talk about the terms and conditions you own it on, the terms and conditions that you've dealt with it and how that loops back round, and then you can overlay a series of extra layers that talk to the features of it that allow it to be marketable, the constraints that sit across it, and you build up a picture of what it is that we have. Let's call that the truth. So when we deal, we go from an inception point of a conversation through to a change in the terms and conditions that hit that data cascade. And we were good in the middle, but we had 2 points at either end that weren't working particularly brilliantly. And our law firm, the same law firm actually at both ends, got involved in two different ways in that. So at the front end, we've adopted a system which I guess you'd call prop tech rather than legal tech, but it's doing a very similar thing called VTS. VTS for us is good, bespoke, property-based activity, manages our interactions, but what it creates is a cohesive view of the truth over time. So it's deal management, but it sets that immutable ledger of what the T's and C's are that start to make it look a little bit blockchain-y. So having got our agents and our teams involved in VTS, we then plugged retrospectively our lawyers into it. So the point at which the Digital Baton passes from VTS to the law firm and making that as absolutely, to work as brilliantly as possible to get into their system is a real point of reducing error, increasing efficiency. But that wasn't their idea. We went to them and said, can you adopt it? And the law firm was sufficiently flexible in order to be able to do that, so the interaction point worked. At the back end, we did a three-way collaboration with the same law firm and one of the providers in the sort of contract management space that Rick was talking to earlier, looking at, we have a point where we go through all of this stuff and then there's a document, and property's boring because the law tells us you have to have a document. The blockchain concept doesn't work perfectly as things stand now. You have to have a deed. How wonderfully archaic. But how do you get from the deed that is an absolute fair representation of your Digital Baton to your property management and asset management systems back within our business? So that point of extraction and the use of their tool completed the journey of the Digital Baton through, so that you have real confidence that your endpoint management is where it needs to be based on terms and conditions that are absolutely accurate as against all the conversations that have gone on, which when you're in a multifaceted environment, so you've got letting agents, customers, two sets of lawyers, their letting agent as well, their ops people, our ops people, having that cohesive Digital Baton makes a massive difference to us from an error perspective, and it means that your data cascade is working as well as it can, because if you make a little mistake at the top, the snowball by the time you get to the bottom is value lost.